Hey, y'all, and welcome back to Native Soil. We continue our season 6, digging into the lay apostolate, and we appreciate you taking a minute to like, subscribe, share, comment with all your family and friends, with people in your parish, people who are not in the parish, so that together we can really dig into this topic and think about how does God want to use each of us to bring renewal to our native soil. And today, as we continue, we're very blessed to bring a couple, a real live married couple, to talk to us about a special ministry in our diocese across the world called Engaged Encounter. So a special welcome to Keri and Beau Buhring.
Thank you, Father.
Thanks so much for having us.
Yeah, welcome to Native Soil.
Yeah.
Good to be here. So happy to be here. Now, it should be mentioned that as we film this, I don't know when you will listen to this, but it is Valentine's Day. This is the day of love, and this is the one day that we could kind of arrange to get together and have this conversation. I feel like God's providence is with us.
Happy St. Valentine's Day to you, and
Thank
happy
you.
St. Valentine's Day to all the future people that are listening to this.
That's right.
So,
Do you have some good plans for after this recording?
probably we're going to go collect our kids and pass out.
Pass out.
Yeah, something like
Probably
that.
pass out. Yeah.
I had somebody earlier today. I said, "Does your husband have something nice for you today?" He's like, "Well, he's going to cook dinner." I was like, "Does he normally cook dinner?" She was like, "Yes."
Sounds about right.
It's more than they can say for me.
I know.
Well, with Beau, every day is Valentine's Day.
Oh, it's so nice.
Yeah, what do you want for dinner, though?
Yeah. Pick us a McDonald's on the way.
Oh, gosh.
That's great. Well, it's great to have y'all. I appreciate this is such an important ministry. And before we kind of dig into the topic of Engaged Encounter, would love for the people listening to just hear a little about y'all and where you're from and basic stats.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, it's kind of funny that you asked that because it's something that we do for the ministry because a big part of our ministry is identifying and recognizing the families that we grew up in and kind of where we came from. So we've already kind of written this talk. I'm not going to give you the talk, but we do this talk basically and introduce ourselves for the couples that we minister to. So
Let's go.
we both grew up around here. I grew up in Mobile. My dad was a football and softball coach in Mobile for a long time and coached a lot of you probably.
Local
and
celebrity.
Taught you in driver's ed probably at McGill.
Coach Buhring.
Yep.
Coach Buhring.
Coach Tom Buhring. And my mom was a registered nurse at Mobile Infirmary for 35 years, I think. And so I grew up on the Western Shore and moved over here after we got married. But went to St. Dominic's, went to McGill, then college at University of South Alabama for engineering, and well, what else? Then I got married, and that's all my life consists of now.
Siblings? You have a couple siblings?
Yes, I have 3 sisters, 2 older and 1 younger, and I was stuck in the middle, kind of being ignored by my parents. Not being ignored, Mom and Dad. Sorry, no.
I'm still yearning for your love.
I talk about it on the weekend, how they kind of left me to my own thing,
Right.
and it's part of how I was formed, and so just the way it is.
That's cool.
He's a quiet, good child.
That's good.
And
My mom says that she has 3 daughters and 1 good child.
That's good. Well, you had a lot of having 3 sisters. They're all like kind of
Oh,
keeping you in the straight and narrow.
I don't know about that. More like trying to push me out of it.
Yeah. Follow us. Very good. So, what about you, Keri?
All right. Well, I started off in Mobile, went to St. Pius, came over and went to Christ the King when I was about 9. So, but I identify as Eastern Shore kind of girl. Christ the King, then McGill. We met at McGill, and I went to Spring Hill for college, and got married coming out of college, and that's all she wrote.
That's cool. This is like mega native soil. This is
Mega.
like deep into the soil, deep into the nativeness of the soil.
It's that Mobile-based sandwich, you know.
We got deep roots.
It is. I like that.
Yeah.
All right. So y'all are at McGill together.
Yes.
Did you date in high school, or did this? When
It
did
sounds terrible
the
to
sparks
say.
fly?
It sounds terrible to say, but we dated when she was in high school.
Okay.
No, I'm a year older than her, and
Okay.
so we started dating I guess, right when you became a senior in high school. So I was just starting college and she was a senior in high school.
Started dating on my birthday.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Was that intentional, or did it just happen to?
It was just a convenient reason to go to her house and not ask her out.
because he
Right.
never actually asked me out.
Yeah. I just kind of,
Started showing
showed
up.
up and like, hey,
He
we're
just
hanging
showed up
out.
for 5
and,
years until he asked me to marry him.
Yeah, I did ask her to marry me.
So that's a great strategy, guys out there.
Yeah, just show up at her house, stay long enough.
With a $20 like
Old Navy
gift card.
There you
and,
go.
hey, happy birthday! You want to hang out?
Yes.
That is so funny. So when did you know you were dating? Like, what happened? Did y'all go on a date, or was there a conversation involved, or did he just kind of was like, well,
It didn't occur to me until he pointed it out like 3 years in that he never asked me out. And I was like, how in the world did you get away with that?
yeah,
I just assumed.
yeah,
Wow.
I mean, there was a lot of like activities that were going on that only dating people do.
yeah.
And so
Like-
we knew at that point, but
I mean, he was like, he'd take me to a restaurant and pay for my meals, but he never actually, I'd be like, hey, let's go to this restaurant. He didn't like say, hey, you want to go to a restaurant?
Yeah. Would you like to go on a date with me Friday or
That is,
something?
that is words he's never said.
he just everyone's got their tactic, He's just got that iron
Yeah, you
will.
got your end.
Like, I will be here to the end.
said it was
so,
a race.
so you just start showing up all the time.
Yeah.
And at some point, you looked at Keri and you're like, you know what? This is it. Like, I want to marry her. And when in the process did that happen?
I think that it was probably at Thanksgiving one year, and it was a couple of years before, probably a year or two before we got engaged. We're at Thanksgiving dinner, the whole family's there, and I look around, and I'm just so impressed with, the cohesiveness of the family, and I'm understanding the family that she grew up in, which I later came to learn more about, but it was when her grandmother looked at me and said, Bo, when are we going to see a ring? And I was like, that was when it hit me. I was like, oh, yeah, maybe that's a good idea.
That's so funny.
I just don't have, in some parts of my personal life, a long-term view of what's going on.
Right. What about you? At what point, this guy shows up at your birthday with a $20 Old Navy card. At what point after that were you like, you know what? I think maybe I'm supposed to marry this guy.
I think it just came on gradually. It's just the point where you just look up one day and you just can't imagine your life without that person.
No.
It like he was and is my best friend. So it was like it just was natural as breathing to be like, when we get married, like it just we started making plans further and further out.
Right.
So it was never a question to me. Like,
Right. It seems like your whole relationship was very organic. Like y'all kind of ran the same circles of friends.
Yeah.
he was
Or
in a
did he,
great.
or was he like really random at this birthday party? It's like this dude from the class above us just shows up.
as random as Bo is.
Yeah.
He was in my sister's grade, and so there was a lot of like graduation parties going on, and particularly he caught my eye at a graduation party that Corey was hosting, and I had known him kind of friend to friend through Corey,
Right.
but he impressed me because he
Go ahead,
just
tell him.
okay, he was following me around the party.
Yeah.
So if
He
I
was
was like,
interested, and it was obvious.
yeah, it was on the bay. So like if I was playing beach volleyball, there he was playing. If I was in the swing, all of a sudden he's pushing the swing. If I was throwing the football, he'd come up and he'd
Right.
join the group, and then I started just moving across the party just to see if he'd
Just to see.
follow.
And I fell for that, obviously.
He did. This was intentional on your part.
Oh, I mean, humans are persistent
Yeah.
hunters, we walk down our prey.
That's right.
Well, you pray or anything, but
But you are. Well, that's funny. That seems very much your MO of just, I'm here. I'm resilient and here.
You just have to deal with it.
Yeah. But I think that's, I like to hear that because just for people listening, there is a real organic, what's the word? Providential, spontaneous moment. I think a lot of times we try to plan things out in life, and this is just very much a good example of life kind of unfolding. God's plan unfolding. I heard someone give a talk. It's like God speaks to us like through our experience and like through our bodies. Like we feel certain things, we see certain things, and this kind of developed over the years to the point. I like how you're saying, like, I looked at him and it's like I can't imagine my life without this guy. I think that's how life works a lot of times. Some people, it's just in a moment, it's like, but a lot of times it's just that slow getting to know, growing in friendship.
Yeah. And I'm glad it's that way for us, especially because I was clueless. So.
Yeah, right. You're like, oh, God, this is interesting.
I'm a 17-year-old girl. I mean, like,
yeah, right. How much can you understand?
Could not have planned it for myself.
Yeah, that's the beautiful thing is like to see the hand of God. Can you see the hand of God in that? Like looking back?
Yeah,
Completely, and so thankful.
Yeah, isn't that cool? I mean, like you're young and you're thinking maybe like at this level, but to realize there's like all these other layers that the Lord was like preparing you for. That's got to be pretty
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, how long have y'all been married now?
We've been married.
Bo, come on, man.
10 years.
10 years.
Did he do it right?
He
Okay,
did it.
good. Congratulations. That's a good anniversary. Have y'all had the anniversary?
We have had the anniversary.
Okay.
Yes, it was in January, actually. So
Okay, good.
thing for us.
Did he do something nice?
What did we do? We went to dinner.
We had a couples massage and went to a fancy dinner.
Okay.
That's right.
Very nice.
It's
Very
nice.
nice. This is good. See, I'm so glad we're doing some Valentine's Day. There's so much good synergy.
That's a good idea for you guys
Yeah.
out there.
Oh, you
Couples
listening?
massage dinner.
Yeah, nice
Solid.
dinner. Now let's talk about Engage Encounter. For those who might not have heard of it, I mean, most Catholics listening who are married probably went through something like it. But for those out there listening, can you tell us, what is the ministry, and then how did y'all get involved?
It is a weekend retreat that engaged couples go on, and it's like a workshop. The focus is between the couples. So the basic outline is like we have a topic and a talk. They separate and answer questions that explore that topic.
Right.
They get back together and they dialogue. So the whole meat of the retreat is them exploring these different avenues of their relationship. And it's crazy because we got people who come on these retreats who have talked about everything. They've been together for a long time. They're super prepared. Awesome. But then you can also have people who have not broached these topics at all.
Yes.
And then all this is super new for them. So this is a retreat that is catering to like the wide spectrum of where you're at in your relationship.
And this would be a program that doesn't just happen in Mobile, but it's kind of a chapter of a
worldwide organization.
Okay, so it's an international.
Yes. It was birthed out of the Marriage Encounter. And then I think Marriage Encounter was birthed out of the Cursillo movement. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we're like grandchildren of the Cursistas.
Okay, well that's really cool because we've had an episode. That's another lay apostolate of Cursillo. So that's really cool to see kind of the way the Holy Spirit works.
Yes.
Some people answer the call to start, a ministry, and then there's like ripple effects in the body of Christ.
Yeah.
So I think that's cool to mention that because we've had an episode on Cursillo. We've had one on Search, which is another ripple effect of Cursillo.
Yeah.
And now I never knew that Engage Encounter was also like you said, a grandchild of Cursillo.
Grandchild, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't remember when Marriage Encounter came out of Cursillo. I know that it did. But Engage Encounter got started in 1974, I think,
so.
And ended up in Mobile by 75. And I mean, by the next year, there were Engage Encounter retreats going on all over the country.
Yeah,
so it
that's
spread
amazing.
pretty quickly, I guess, among the Marriage Encounter folks,
Right.
Yeah.
who were already established.
And another beautiful part of this ministry is like, yes, we put on the weekend retreats for the engaging couples, but there's this whole community of people, of beautiful people actually, that put on these retreats and meet together for enrichment, for community, for like we just share each other's lives.
Yeah.
So that's actually how we got involved is We big shout out to Brittany and James DeFalco.
Shout out.
Shout out. They kept inviting us, and we're newlyweds, and we're like, but
To kind of this fellowship amongst their kind of group of
yeah,
couple
they're like
friends.
just inviting us to get involved, and and we honestly, I just felt bad for saying no so many times.
Right.
And I was like, okay, I guess we'll go to one.
They're like, hey, why don't you guys come and kind of do the welcoming, like come and welcome the engaged couples to the monastery, the
Help bring the
Visitation
bags
Monastery,
up.
where
Yeah.
we do the thing. I said, no, thank you.
Yeah.
So eventually we started doing that after saying no.
Naturally.
And then they said, why don't you stay for the weekend and kind of help out behind the scenes, kind of support the retreat, section of it.
Be the gophers.
No.
Right.
Okay, but then we eventually started doing that. And then, hey, maybe you should get up there. Maybe you should write some
story.
talks. Tell
Man,
your
these
story.
people are savvy. DeFalco's
I
are
don't-
savvy recruiters.
Yeah, we're
Vicious.
saying no. So long story short, we did that, and then they said, "Hey, you guys should think about kind of being the local coordinators, being the leaders of the
Y'all should
Mobile
replace
community.
us."
You guys should replace us." And we said,
Absolutely
no,
not.
I'm afraid, no, Brittany, I can't do it. So here
Naturally,
we are, local
coordinators.
leader of local chapter of Catholic Engagement Counter.
But it was more than just them. Like, once we started getting in there, like, before I fell in love with the actual ministry, I fell in love with the people. I fell in love with the community itself before I fell in love with the actual ministry. For those of y'all who don't know us, we went through a period of infertility before adoption, and that was hard, and it can be very isolating. And in this community, other people had gone through infertility and could offer advice, and other people had adopted, and it was just somewhere that I felt a place.
Yeah.
And I think that's what actually got us in there. At least me. I'm getting emotional. Sorry, because I found a place. I found a home in a community, and then I wasn't as isolated or alone anymore.
Yes. Man, what a beautiful. I appreciate you sharing that. And isn't that what the church ought to be?
Yeah.
A place where people feel like they belong, particularly in our woundedness, brokenness, messiness, loneliness. Isn't that the reason Jesus Christ came to help us out?
Amen.
So to hear you, that just gives me chills, because that is the whole theme. Even this whole thing of the lay apostolate is we're all the body of Christ, and if we look at the vineyard that is the world, we've all got a place. There's work to be done for us to help others, but also to be kind of this mutual enrichment of gifts. And,
Yes.
and like you said, you're going through this really tough time and marriage of infertility and all, but to encounter other people who can understand that and appreciate that.
Gone through it.
Yes. That's just a great image of what the church ought to be, So that's amazing.
And it's kind of the same for what we do for our engaging couples, because sitting in the seats, we could have never known what God had in store for us, the sufferings and the trials. But the people, and I still remember the couples and their stories, relating to us and inviting us off, the authenticity of inviting us into their struggles so we can learn from them. And then past the retreat, joining community is the authenticity, inviting us into everybody, the community, putting us in their lives so we can learn from them even more.
Yeah.
And then to continue giving that gift to the engaged couples behind us. So it's a beautiful thing.
It is. So could you describe the how has this impacted y'all's marriage, being part of this ministry? Like you said, the DeFalco's kind of slowly kind of reeled you in deeper and deeper. And so you're getting more involved in the mechanics and the ministry of it, but also you're getting more deeply plugged into these people's lives that you're ministering with. What's been the net result of that for y'all's relationship? Beau?
Well, one thing that I'll say is, when we first went on Engaged Encounter, Keri talked about it sometimes we get couples who have been together for so long and they think they've talked about everything, and sometimes they really have. And we were that way. We thought that we had talked about everything, and we thought that we were on the same page on, and everything. And we learned so much about how we not necessarily were.
Yeah.
And one of the great things about participating in the ministry and in kind of an active role at the retreats is we go on retreat again and again. Every time that we go on a retreat, we leave our kids with the grandparents, and we leave our chores or our work or whatever it is at home, and we go on retreat too.
Yeah.
And we engage with the same topics that our couples are working through on issues of their own. But, obviously our context is different because we're married, and we've been married for 10 years, and we're engaged for 5.5 years before that.
We weren't engaged for 5.5 years.
You dated.
We dated for 5.5 years.
Yeah. That's what I meant. All these words get confused in my mind, But continually re-engaging with those topics reinforces all the lessons that we learned from Engage Encounter about family and about communication and about the sacrament of marriage, which is what we're trying to embody. And so continually reinforcing that has been a huge part of our marriage.
It's a great time to step back, reflect. How is our marriage going? How can it be better? What are the ways that we're thriving? What are the ways that we're struggling? Just where is God calling us forward?
Yeah.
So we've done a lot of discernment about our own families. I know other couples who have made major family decisions on the retreat.
Yeah.
So we're praying, we're writing with the couples too.
Wow. So every retreat, y'all take some time to kind of jot out as the retreatants are going through it.
Yeah, we have a list of our own questions. So when they go to write or dialogue, we go to write and answer our own questions as well.
No kidding. And they're catered. Is it like from Marriage Encounter? Or are y'all kind of doing?
It's not from Marriage Encounter. It's kind of catered, kind of on topic, kind of from. It can be from daily readings. It can be from scripture. They're kind of ad-libbed.
Right.
Well, members of our community,
Have
of
developed
our
them
local
kind of
community,
over the
put those together for
Yes.
us, and
That's neat.
they're always great reflection questions about married life and about also just individual spirituality and
Right.
our relationship with Christ. And they're always great.
Do you have maybe a story in particular about how this ministry has kind of impacted your marriage? Like, is there like a particular thing you'd feel comfortable pointing to and saying, like you said, sometimes even couples will make a big decision on a weekend about something they're discerning, or would you? Is there anything that comes to mind, kind of?
I think each time we adopt, I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't think we could do that again.
Right.
But then like when I really time goes by and you feel like you're not drowning anymore, because you reach that equilibrium
Right.
with a baby. So each decision and each time I've realized I'm ready for another baby. It's been
On a weekend.
on a weekend.
And so, how many times have y'all adopted now?
2, and we're waiting on our 3rd.
Wow. That's so special. I mean, that's such a huge act of faith, and love, and to have people to support you to do that.
Okay,
That's pretty cool.
here's our cool God moment. I finally remembered. All right, so we wrote our talks. It took about a year to write the talks because there's 9 or so.
Yeah, and we procrastinate. It didn't actually take that long.
It just keeps looming. You're kind of thinking about
yes.
it, thinking
Yeah, it
about
is.
it, but then you got to jot. Yeah.
Yes, most of the writing was in the last 2 months before we had to do the retreat. So that was on a November 2nd through 4th, and we had not yet adopted. And so our decisions talk is all about our adoption process. And the talk ends with us still waiting. And that was the first time we gave our talk, and it was very emotional. And then the day after, we got the call for Cora.
Wow.
We were chosen, and then she was born on the Solemnity of Mary on the January 1st.
Wow.
So did our talk, and then the next day we got her call for her. So
That's pretty powerful. So that just felt like God's providence is just kind of all right, Laura, maybe you know what you're doing up there. Yeah, what a grace. And so how old are your kids now?
Cora's 5, and Elijah is
About to be 3.
about to be 3.
That's awesome. And did you get them both when they were babies?
Cora was the day she was born. We were able to pick her up.
Wow.
And then Elijah we got at 14 and a half months old.
That's neat. So the one, what was Cora born in Mobile?
No, she was up in Maryland.
No kidding. So y'all went up there and were able to be there for the birth.
Yeah, we were actually on the plane when she was born.
Yeah.
I remember. I think
Fortunately.
I got the email like as we're boarding the plane to go to Maryland, and but yeah, we got there that night, the night she was born, and met her birth mother then, right? And yeah, and we were then stuck in Maryland because there's actually like when you adopt across state lines, there are certain rules that you have to follow because things are difficult. Right. And so we were in Maryland for 2 weeks. I don't know if you remember at the beginning of 2018, there was that whole polar vortex situation.
Yes.
We were in a blizzard in a Best Western in Maryland for 2 weeks with a baby.
Snowed in with a newborn.
Wow.
So that was pretty interesting.
And during that 2 weeks, are you having like interaction with the birth mother during that 2 weeks, or is it what is that like?
It's kind of it's a weird story because we were discharged from the hospital and then the blizzard hits, so then we're snowed in. But during that time, the birth mother had 5 days to change her mind.
Oh wow!
So you're just kind of living on pins and needles until the final day.
Right.
And then we did see her before we left, and it was special.
Yeah, I'm sure it was. Yeah. What was it like holding the child for the first time or meeting the child? I mean, I'm just sitting here imagining like how surreal that must be, you know, because you prayed about like, should you do it? And then you decide to do it. And then it's the whole waiting game of, will we get placed? And then you give the talk. And then the next day you get the call. And then you're driving to Maryland. And then you see her. And
it was a whirlwind. It was a whirlwind. To be honest, like, I don't remember much of it. We didn't sleep.
Yeah. A lot of delirium.
I remember she would not sleep unless we were holding her and walking.
Yeah.
So we'd take 3-hour shifts during the night
Man.
to just pace with her.
Yeah, so we lost some weight at least.
Yeah, right. Good exercise.
We did.
Yeah. Well, that's good. That sounds like a lot of, people, most parents talk about just a delirium and not sleeping. And so, there's like a solidarity there.
Yeah. The amazement came later.
Yeah, right. Yeah, amazing. Yeah, all the feels.
All the feels.
All the feels came later.
It's also the coldest I've ever been.
I would imagine you're in a polar vortex.
The Chesapeake was frozen.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. All right, to shift gears a little bit, that was there's a lot there we could explore, but I'm kind of thinking you have seen a lot of couples now. You've been doing this ministry for 5-6 years, it sounds like.
I'd say we started getting involved in some capacity our first year, so 10 years.
Okay. Yeah. So 10 years, y'all have seen a lot of couples come through.
Oh, yeah.
And one thing, y'all have a kind of a privileged vantage point, I think, of like, what is it that young couples are dealing with in preparing to get married? What would you say are some of the more regular challenges or obstacles that you see couples are kind of wrestling with as they prepare to get married in this day and age? Like for people listening who are thinking about getting married or trying to support people getting married, like what would be things to hone in on?
I would say cohabitation. There's a kind of misunderstanding about what exactly is the difference between marriage in the Catholic Church and the sacrament versus just living in the same spot. Because on the outside, it can look very similar.
Right.
But on the inside, especially spiritually, it is way different. So like it's a difference between two people inhabiting a house and two becoming one body, one flesh, one spirit in Christ. So, and like the mission of marriage. So a lot of it is getting across to our couples that what they're expecting is not what it is.
Right.
That what does it mean to be a sacrament? What does it mean to be making this promise to another person before God?
Right.
And sharing your life 100%, not 50-50.
Yeah. Do you have something there?
Well, I was just going to add, it occurred to me as she was talking that, and this is a challenge of a kind, but certainly not a total impediment. But a lot of our couples, probably the majority, are interfaith couples.
Right.
We have a lot of Catholic on one side and non-Catholic Christian or or maybe even non-religious on the other side.
Right.
And making those values coincide and joining those lives together in the way that Keri's talking about, and in creating a sacrament, which is what they're trying to do ostensibly, is a challenge, especially when one or even both, even if the Catholic member of the marriage, comes into our ministry without necessarily a good formation,
right,
or with attitudes about marriage that are informed by their family that might not be ideal under our circumstances. All of those fall into those expectations that she's talking about.
What would you say? Is there any expectation? I like how you're saying people are expecting marriage to be one thing, and then on the retreat and as you present the teaching of the church, it's kind of another thing. Mm-hmm. Could you give an example? Is there something like you see consistently? Like they're expecting it to be this, but you kind of have to challenge them and say, well, you might think it's this, but do you think like the 50-50 thing, do you think a lot of people see it as, well, kind of, you do your half and I'll do my half, and like you'll have your career and I'll have my career, and we'll kind of, I don't want to mess up your life and you don't want to mess up my life.
Yes.
Is that common?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the idea that we're on, like a business partnership, where like, we've got our life together, and also I have my life here and you have your life there, and they kind of rub at the edge or something.
Right.
Extremely common.
You're like, where are we?
I forgot.
What about, what do y'all say to couples as far as, all right, so if they're living together and sharing, maybe they're sharing a lot of things together.
Yes.
But it's, you have a lot of, even if you're not living together, it's kind of like, okay, you have a lot in common. You're spending a lot of time together. You're getting to know each other's family, but then you get married. It's like your wedding day. Like, what's different from that day on? Like, a lot of the practicals might be the same. Mm-hmm. Like, okay, we talk every day and we do vacations and family reunions together. But I guess, how do y'all describe the sacrament to them? Like, what's different?
So I love how in the retreat, each talk builds on the other, and it culminates with the betrothal and the unity talks. Yeah. So at the end, like after we've laid a lot of groundwork and foundations, what changes is your mission in life.
Yeah.
Like what changes is you now have to love this other person the way Christ loves the church. Yeah. Like that's just a fundamental change in just purpose. Like wake up every day and you're trying to get that other person to heaven, and they're trying to get you to heaven. And how are you going to do this? Mm-hmm. Like how are you going to support that person? How are you going to love that person? How are you going to get this person through a tough time? It's not a change on the outside, it's a change of the heart. And it's like something God put his seal on, and you can't see it, but it's real.
Yeah. Yeah, it's beautiful. The whole orientation of your life is oriented to serving and loving that person. And like Christ loves the church.
Dang.
That's a lot.
Yep. No pressure.
Would you add anything to that, just as far as like kind of like when you're talking to the guys, is there a certain way you kind of break it down as far as like, all right, guys, let's get down to brass tacks. Like here's what your mission is with your wife now, or
yeah, it always brings me back to Ephesians 5, right? Because and Keri just alluded to it, where St. Paul calls women to serve their husbands, and every time I that I hear that in church, and every time I hear it at a wedding, especially. I know that I always get questions from single women, even married women who might not have heard it before or something, asking like, what's all this? What's all this? Serve your husbands.
Not very popular vernacular there.
Yeah. And,
Be subordinate into the age of like women's
And, like,
independence and
women's-
liberation.
I mean,
It's like,
yes.
be subordinate. To
I mean,
a man.
I get
Hold
it.
on, what?
I mean, I get it. I'm like, I'm sympathetic and empathetic toward that attitude
jarring.
because it's jarring. But the next line about loving your wife as you love the church and laying down your life for her, is not an attitude that we see in kind of the wider cultural ideals of marriage, which are geared toward, being happy and, being financially secure, which was a big value for us in our life. But those ideals are not geared toward spiritual fulfillment and a relationship of the spouses with Christ,
Right.
and with Christ through each other.
Right.
And you asked me how do I talk to the guys about that? We talk to everybody as a group, but on the side, between the larger talks to the group, when you get the chance to go one-on-one with these people, they're all different.
Yeah.
They come from every walk of life you can imagine. You said young couples. We have a lot of young couples. They're gradually aging up. Like a lot of our demographics are trending toward like late 20s now.
Right.
And we have older couples too. We have people who are like 50 and 60 getting married sometimes. And approaching those people and telling them like, well, gee, mister, here's my story.
Yeah. Right. We've done it for 10 years.
It's always different. Everybody's different. And you have to find them where they are.
Yes.
And it's difficult to always know.
How do you understand for yourselves, and then as you're talking to other couples, the goal is to love your spouse like Christ loved the church? How do you do that? How do you get that ability?
Oh gosh.
Does
Pray.
that make sense?
How do you get that ability? That's a great question, because it's not an ability that you just wake up one day with. It's not an ability. We say that love is not an emotion. It's a choice, but it's not just a choice. The one of the keys to a successful marriage, and not one that we always possess, but one of the keys to a successful marriage is being skilled at loving.
Yeah.
Because it's like any muscle. Love is a muscle as much as it is a choice.
Right.
And you have to work it. And you have to work it in the right ways. If you could bench press, 25 pounds all day long and not gain any muscle. But as soon as you start upping that weight and working in the ways, loving your spouse in the ways that they appreciate, not only in the ways they appreciate, but in ways that are effective, which is different for everybody, really. That's working that muscle, building that skill of loving, and having an attitude and a direction of total, free, total, faithful, fruitful, but total servitude to your spouse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the best I got.
So everybody has I think that since it is a skill-based thing. So there's things you're good at and your things you're maybe not so good at, and you have your love language, right? And the ways that you receive love and the ways that you give it. So two people can be ships in the night, like Beau and I, because I just want to be cuddled, and Beau will be showing me his love by fixing something. And I'll be like, why are you fixing it? I just want you to cuddle with me.
Yeah.
You got to know each other and know the ways that are most effective. And also, let's say I'm tired, I'm cleaning up all day. And let's just say the socks are all over the floor. And, the muscle for me is don't get mad, don't complain, just pick up the socks because you love them,
Right.
And just be okay with that.
Yeah, just do these little things. Kind of, you die to yourself. You do it out of love. You kind of wait for the right time. I really like this idea of the way you're describing it. It's almost like being willing to become a student of the person you're married to and learn. You're very attentive to them. You're learning the way that they need to be loved. Mm-hmm. And I love to. As a priest, I talk to our guys about like as a priest, you have to study the native soil. You have to study the place that you're assigned to. Like your parish is like your bride, but we had a wonderful priest retreat from a priest from St. Minor, Father Christian Rabb, and he kind of gave us all these reflections, kind of comparing priesthood to marriage. But that kind of this whole thing of you have to be attentive to your bride and like what does she need, you know, and conform yourself to her needs. Like I use the word servitude. But to have your sense of like I am freely kind of bonding myself or even enslaving myself, to use a dramatic term, to her and to her needs, to her attitudes, to her just the way that she is, you know.
Yeah, and we talk on the retreat about you know, we use the phrase you can I can't remember the phrase now.
Oh no.
You can't change your spouse.
Yeah.
You can only change yourself.
Yeah.
And you know that mission of becoming a servant to your spouse, of adapting to your spouse. I mean, you have to cut off pieces of yourself,
Right.
you know, pieces of your personality that aren't in tune in the right ways,
Right.
That are, you know, they're sinful aspects of ourselves that we need to you know, reform, and elements where we need to grow in order to be more complementary with our spouse,
Right.
and to be more united with our spouse. And that's a major theme on our weekends as well.
That's awesome. I'm thinking of John the Baptist. He's kind of like, I must decrease so that he may increase.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, but as you love Christ in each other, you know, it's not like your love for your spouse and Christ is not like a separate thing.
No.
There's this whole spirituality kind of dying to yourself. You know, there's something about like you die to yourself, or whether it's your ego, your sinfulness, or just brokenness or whatever, so that you can like come into communion with God and with other persons. And so I think that's the cool, like as you learn to die to yourself, it creates more space for yourself to get out of the way so that you can receive the self of somebody else, if that makes sense. I'm kind of thinking out loud, but.
Well, you know, I mean, you know, we think about sometimes we think about marriages as little trinities with, you know, the husband and the wife and God. And that kind of brings to mind the idea of like a triangle where, you know, if you move, there's, but I always thought of it instead of as a triangle, but as a line, you know, where Keri and I are on either end of the line and God's behind us, behind either of us. And in order to reach God, we have to go to each other.
Yes.
I have to step off of the platform that represents Beau and step onto the platform that represents Keri in order to reach God on her platform.
Right.
Your mind is very engineering.
Well, I mean, I was about to give a whole engineering analog about native soil, but I'm not going to bother.
We'll invite you back for that. But no, I like that a lot. And I had someone tell me, he said, you know, just feeling called to do what you're talking about. He said, you know, for a lot of my life, I tried to love Christ here and then love like my wife here. But I feel like when the Lord kind of drawed me deeper, you know, I felt like Christ was asking me to love him living inside of my wife.
He gets it, yeah.
You know, like love, and that's that line I think you're talking about is it has to be one and the same motion. You know, if I'm going to draw closer to Christ, I necessarily am going to draw closer to my wife because we're living a sacrament in which Christ is all mixed up in this. You know, like you can't separate anymore.
Yeah.
And I love the part of like a wedding mass in particular of, you know, a husband and wife, they've just done their vows and pledged to love each other like Christ loves the church. And then the first thing you do, like you're married at that point at you know, the spiritual level. But the first thing you do is you invite the body and blood of Christ to be it and give it to them, to nourish them, so that they can love each other with the love of Christ.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times in Christian life, whether we're married, whatever, sometimes we try to love each other like Christ without Christ. You know?
Yeah, try and muscle it.
Yeah,
like,
and it's
I
like
can do it.
Yeah, it's like we can't. It's just we can't. It's not like a knock on us, but like we can't. You can't share God's love without God.
Then you
can't-
become like a little martyrdom resentment.
Yeah.
I find that in myself is like, if I try and do it without Christ, it's like, oh, I'm doing it because I'm being a martyr.
Yeah. And then it's like you owe. It's like God owes you,
Now
your
you
husband
owe
owes
me.
Yeah. I'm very familiar with that space. You kind of are bearing it. It's like, oh, why does no one appreciate this?
Like, I'm being nice, but I'm angry about it.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
I don't know anything about that.
But he's like, never experienced that. Could y'all share maybe a kind of like a glory story? Like, have you seen this ministry impact somebody in a way that was affirming? Because in ministry, you rarely get to see the results, but every now and then the Lord will throw you a bone to kind of keep you in the game.
Yes.
And I wonder if you've had maybe had a moment like that.
To give you the like worst version of that, we had a fantastic presenter who had a great voice for radio, named Ward Hines, who's now passed away. You got to rest him.
Yeah.
But he presented on our weekend, right? Yeah,
He did.
He presented on the weekend that we attended, and afterward, where we got involved with the ministry, I was asking him at some point, what do you consider? Basically, what you're asking, what are you looking for?
Right.
What are you looking for to see out of a couple? And he said, I don't consider it a successful weekend unless I break somebody up. Because, he had the attitude, and I mean, it's not wrong, that a lot of the couples that we get coming into Engage Encounter, I don't want to say a lot, but some of them,
Right.
May not be properly formed, may not have, everything that they need to really get married when they come to us.
Right.
Hopefully we've prepared them on the way out. But if they come to us and they're really, not willing to make the effort to be that sacrament, I hope they would break up. And when I see somebody break up and leave the weekend, I think, well, it's too bad that they couldn't make it through, but maybe it's better than the alternative of being married to somebody that you're not really willing to be a sacrament for.
Yeah, that's a great point, and that you're not and getting married on the wrong terms. Like you thought it was you thought it was this, but now you realize it's this, and it's like, are we interested in doing that together?
And I wish that I wish that I can instill in them the attitude and the desire to be that sacrament.
Right.
But we're imperfect.
Right.
So
I have a much better, happier,
well,
glorious story.
cut that out, right? It's in post.
Yeah, we'll just edit that out and end on a happy note.
So we do give the opportunity for anonymous feedback on the weekend.
Right.
And it's not specifically one glory story, but when we get the feedback that something we said or there was just a moment that someone met God,
Yes.
and that it changes their life going forward. Like sometimes, like once we got a feedback that they were very moved by the call for second chastity. So if some couples are living together, we understand that that's a reality. We have an invitation to renew their chastity before the wedding, and just have that period away from one another physically, so that they can enjoy coming together in the sacrament with chastity and purity.
Yeah.
And for me to read the feedback and see that touched somebody, that they are going to do that they saw value in something that we said. That's a hard ask. I mean, I'm not going to make any like qualms about it. Like
Yes.
in this culture we're in, that's asking something. That's like a crazy ask.
It is. It's a crazy idea.
So also like people who come back and like maybe they were interested in learning more about NFP. I know that's another crazy ask.
Right.
There's a lot of things in the weekends. It's like, we understand that you may not be at this point, but we would love for you to have an open mind. So whether it's renewed chastity or looking into fertility methods that aren't artificial,
Right.
just when they come back and somebody has responded well to that, it's really affirming.
Yeah. No, I can only imagine. That's obviously something that you're living and that you've lived through. I mean, just navigating fertility and that kind of thing. But it is such a radically different orientation to the way the world works. And to make that proposition, it kind of gets you. The gospel has some radical elements to it. Actually, all of it. I mean, love your enemies, pray for those who persecute you. It's kind of crazy, But to see people get it, to see people encounter the Lord, and enough so much that they're willing to have that metanoia, that conversion of, you kind of see the scales fall a little bit. And they're like, wait a minute, there's this whole other way to approach life. Because ultimately, I think, and I know, and we're all work in progress. It's about being happy.
Yes.
It's about having like the fullest and richest life possible. And are there heartache and like all that stuff? Sure. But the alternative, that's kind of the seduction of the world, is the easier kind of more convenient path. In the long run, doesn't always fill your soul, with what you're looking for. So y'all are really standing in that breach and preaching the gospel in, this radical way that, not everybody is ready to be hook, line, and sinker.
Yes, not everybody.
But I really admire y'all because it takes some perseverance and faith to kind of keep getting up. And then the Lord you get to see some of that.
And, all we can do is be authentic and let the Lord do his work.
That's right.
Because it can be kind of daunting to see what you're up against and be like, what in the world, how in the world can we change these people's minds? But it's not actually us changing their minds. We can just bring our loaves and fishes and just let the Lord work on the hearts. But the best way is just not to get in the way. And then people really respond to the authenticity of our stories. So we're trying to teach them something through our stories, but we're not professionals. Like, these are stories of how, hey, we did some things right, but hey, maybe this is how we did this really wrong.
Right.
Maybe not do that.
Yeah, right. Learn from our mistakes.
Yeah. So they get to know us very well listening to us, and hopefully that gives them enough of like a respect for us, that we're real people,
right?
That will soften their hearts a bit.
Yes. Well, as someone who's had a lot of people in marriage prep over the years, and a lot of people going to Engage Encounter, definitely have seen firsthand the impact of it. See the graces in people's lives. I've never met a couple that's gone on a weekend and got nothing out of it. There's always something. And for a lot, there are a number of people who've been like, this was a life-changing experience. For a lot of people, it's the first retreat they've ever been on in their life. And that's puts a lot on y'all in the sense of, like you said, you're trying to deal with people whose formation level is like different and everything. But that's from a marriage standpoint, but like you said, just from a baseline, giving people a free weekend to experience God, that's a huge deal. So definitely thankful for y'all and y'all being willing to do that ministry, and have seen, firsthand kind of the impact of it. So, very grateful to y'all, and look forward to see what the ministry has moving forward.
So do we.
Yeah, let's do.
And on that note, let's say somebody's listening to this and they're feeling just all the vibes of Valentine's Day and y'all being here and talking, and they're thinking, maybe I ought to help. Like, maybe I could be a gopher, or, where would you lead them? Where could they get more information about all this?
If they wanted to contact us, the easiest way would just be to go to our website, which is mobile.engageencounter.com. And so you'll be able to find contact information for us,
right,
on the website or contact forms. But we say it on the weekend, there's no end of ways that people could be helpful toward us. Also,
check out our Facebook page, which is Mobile Catholic Engage Encounter. Just search that on Facebook. You should find us.
Wonderful. And really, the people listening, pray about this.
Yes.
We
want you.
We want you. The soil doesn't till itself. That's something we've talked about in this, talking about the lay apostolate, is we all have a role in the vineyard. And this is a really important ministry. Marriage is such an important, it's at the heart of every family, the heart of every society. And to prepare people well takes a lot of effort, a lot of prayer, and a lot of people. And just like, I've known people who've been on Engaged, kind of like, oh man, Beau and Keri, they're great. I related to them. I connected with them. They were younger. And, I think all ages, there's different kind of mentorship. But you know, whatever age you are, you know, it's helpful to have a variety from what I understand of couples, you know, be part of the team because everybody brings like different perspectives and different insight. So really, if you're listening and this kind of strikes a chord with you, I just really invite you to pray about it and reach out. And maybe you just come on a weekend and just kind of check it out. But this is such an important ministry to the church and, you know, worth praying about, worth getting some recruits to help y'all out. You know, y'all at some point will have to pass it on.
Father Vic, we are also we recruit clergy too.
Okay, so looks like I'm on the spot too. So I got to take it to prayer as well.
Yes.
Not only you, but I mean, any priest that's out there that, I mean, you don't want to write all the talks, you don't have to. You want to write one talk and present it once a year. That'd be great.
Yeah.
We'll take it.
Yeah.
Because, you know, and Father Stephen Frizzell is involved in the ministry, and he is absolutely fantastic. And I can tell you that the weekends that we do have a priest on the weekend, we often have deacons, and the deacons are fantastic too. But the weekends where we're able to have a priest, we see just an incredible response from the participants.
People bloom.
Who are just looking for involvement with a priest.
That's cool.
You know, maybe unconsciously.
Right, and for a lot of people too, it might be their first chance to have a real personal engagement
Absolutely.
rather than just sitting in the pews, kind of waving on the way out of mass. So yeah, you priests, myself included, we got to pray about this. We got to think about this because this is a very important ministry. All right, one last question. We've made it to this point. Did y'all bring any soil?
Oh, did we?
I mean,
We brought soil.
boom! Oh, look at that!
Yes.
This is the most serious mason jar I think that's been presented in 6 seasons. Tell us what is in this thing.
We've gone above and beyond.
First, the first soil we put in there is the soil of the Visitation Monastery.
Okay.
Which is where we hold our retreats.
That's where all our retreats are held, and it's a super special place. Talk about native soil. Other engaged encounter retreats are done around the country and the world at hotels. We get our own sisters who are praying for the participants, who have opened their home to us, and it is super special to be at the Visitation Monastery. I didn't realize how much the Visitation is a part of my life until COVID and the shutdown. Yeah. And I just yearned for that place. And then the rest of the dirt is dirt from all the couples in our ministry, from their houses, their own little monasteries.
No kidding. Yeah. Man, yes. So how many couples does this represent?
We've got an accumulation of
at least 6 or 7.
I was going to say 6, 7, 8.
That's awesome.
8
Did they all bring it to you, or did you like go on a tour and like just show up in their lawn?
That would have been a good idea.
We wouldn't even tell them. We'd just be in their lawn, like digging up their dirt. No, we had a business meeting for the core team, and I said, "Hey, bring some dirt," and they're like, "Why?"
Why?
That is so thoughtful. Yeah, I love that. This is very special soil. Mm-hmm. Well, this is very nice. I would love for y'all to get both your signatures. This is the first episode ever that we've had a married couple, much less 2 people, much less this gargantuan mason jar. So we definitely want you to both sign this.
We bring the complete thing.
So that we can remember this historic
on here?
Valentine.
Over it?
Okay. Well.
It is actually a personal mason jar.
That's it. So where did this mason jar come from?
I have no idea. The cabinet.
Okay. Somewhere.
I
There used
love
to be
mason
peaches in there or
jars.
something.
I love mason jars.
Awesome.
Here we go.
All right. Well, I would love for y'all to hold this as we close. This is very thoughtful soil. Thank you for the interview. Thank you for your ministry. Thank you for all the thought you put into getting the soil to all the other couples who gave you dirt. We honor them. And there's a very meaningful jar that so just appreciate y'all and invite everyone listening to join me as I pray over y'all and just ask God's blessing upon your marriage and your ministry. Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Heavenly Father, we love you and praise you and just thank you for all your many gifts, especially for Beau and Keri and the great call you have put on their life to be married, to live this amazing sacrament of Christ loving the church through the love of a husband and a wife. Thank you for this call on their life to be a part of Engaged Encounter and for all those who participate in this ministry. We just ask you to pour out your Holy Spirit upon these two. Bring a fresh anointing of your Holy Spirit to their marriage, to the love with their children, to this ministry, to the people they minister with. And we just ask your Holy Spirit to continue to guide this ministry. And even as I pray right now, if there are couples that you are calling to enter into this ministry, we just ask that you would touch their hearts and make it known to them that you are inviting them to come alongside Beau and Keri and their team to invest in the couples of our future church. I ask your special blessing upon Keri and Beau and their ministry, and I place it in a special way in the hands of our Blessed Mother. We ask that she be with them and be with all those who work in this couple's ministry as we pray. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. And through our powerful intercession, may God bless you, your soil, and all those listening, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you all again.
Thank you, Father.
Thank you so much for having us.
And God bless all of y'all listening. We look forward to having you back here with us on Native Soil.